What's up, everyone, and welcome to another special edition of Epic Nerd Time in conjunction with Launchtober 2022. Yes, we are with Apollo City Comics Podcast, the I Don't Know Shit About Comics podcast, lesser known comics. And here on Epic Nerd Time, we are discussing some creators that have awesome comic books coming out this month of October. Guys, give it up again, wherever you guys are, stand up and clap for our first two-time guest here, second time coming back, writer of Dismay Comics and writer of this wonderful anthology series, from what I can take of read, the horror anthology Dismay Avenue, hailing all the way from Georgia, I believe. Am I right?
Northwest Florida, basically
Northwest Florida.
Georgia. Though.
It's close. I was close.
Yeah.
Hailing all the way from Northwest Florida, Mr. Brandon Ingram. Brother, how are you?
Doing pretty good. And everyone stay standing the rest of the episode. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Well, obviously I said it kind of earlier. You are the basically the first guy who's came back a second time. So thank you. How have things been since we last talked?
They've been pretty good. It's busier than it was then. Not just the job that brings in the money, but with making comics, just because had the Gallows Man #1 and 2 Kickstarter, and then basically as soon as I sent out all of that, it's like, okay, now to work on Dismay Avenue #1 and 2 Kickstarter. So just keep trying to keep bringing these books out.
So I imagine that with the day job too, it's a lot. And I know you do podcasts as well, so it's like between the podcast, that and life, I mean, you probably don't have time for much else.
Basically, yeah, my life is day job, making comics, podcasts, and podcasts is more like, this is my leisure time. This is my kickback. I don't really drink, but I'll sit back with a nice Propel water and just talk about whatever. And then reading comics. That's pretty much my life. If it wasn't for the podcast, it'd be like, dang, this guy's like kind of lonely. It's like, no. I talk with my buddy all the time on the podcast and stuff, but it's busy, but I as busy as my life is, I love it. So
that's awesome. How did Gallows Man Kickstarter do?
Did really good. It did better than the first issue Kickstarter, because the first issue Kickstarter was in 2021, and that did $1,094. And then this one was issues 1 and 2, emphasizing issue 2, and it did 1,275. So
awesome.
I was my goals with all of my Kickstarters, even though it'll be like $500 to fund it, my in-head goal is $1,000 per Kickstarter. That's just in my head. If we don't get that, we don't get that. It doesn't entirely bother me, but that's in my head. So when we break that 1,000, it's like, oh, that's so awesome. And then once we broke that 1,000 with this past Gallows Man Kickstarter, I was like, okay, now my in-head goal is, let's pass that first Kickstarter. Like even if it's $1 over, if it's $1,095, even if it was that, I'd be like, yes, we did it. But I mean, it surpassed that like by a couple $100. I was like, well, that all of my bonus objectives have already been hit. So I was like, yeah, let's just see where it goes.
When you break a Kickstarter like that, or when you kind of consistently hit a mark, does that give you inspiration to keep that title going?
Oh, heck yeah. Which the titles will go no matter what, because I love making them and writing them. And there is a small collective that do really like my stuff and want to see it keep going. But yeah, seeing that just it encourages me even more to try to get it out as soon as I can. So yeah, it's very encouraging.
Can you, without spoilering, obviously, can you give us the Reader's Digest version of this new and this horror stuff that you've got coming out? Dismay Avenue, and can you tell us when this launches?
Yeah, so Dismay Avenue horror anthology series, issues 1 and 2 are in this Kickstarter. And it's a variety of horror. With issues 1 and 2, it's kind of specifically psychological slash a little bit of cosmic horror is what you're kind of getting with these 2 issues. And both issues are huge comics. It's not like a 22-page comic, 32-page comic. Issue 1 is over 40 pages long. Issue 2 is over 60 pages long. So you're getting over 100 pages of comics. And I, it's biased because I'm the writer. I like the stories. I think they're great. What's even better than the stories is the art. The art for each one of these issues is phenomenal. I love the art with each one of these. The first issue is pretty much one whole story. There's a one-page story at the very end, kind of horror comedy, but one main story called Program. It follows a couple, Ben and Mia, who go on a movie date night at a theater that's like on the outskirts of town, and it's completely dead. There's no one in the parking lot. There's just 2 concessions girls at the concession stand. There's a guy wearing his hoodie and his hood over, kind of sketchy, off in the corner of the lobby. And as the date night goes along, gets weirder and creepier than being in this setting. And then with issue 2, you have 4 different stories. You got Tolls the Bell, Raw Horror, Destination, and Acolyte. And all 4 are very different stories with different elements of horror. And each art style is super unique because the first one, it's a little kid, has to stay after school one day, and weird, creepy stuff starts happening from there. And that art style is very much like Junji Ito manga horror type style. That's that one. Uh, Raw Horror is done by the same artist that did issue 1 Program. That one's very much like surreal, atmospheric, dreamlike. It follows a military soldier waking up at home and not really understanding his surroundings, and it goes from there. Destination follows a little girl who goes into a thrift shop with her mom and finds a musical triangle in the thrift shop as she's looking around. And when you strike that musical triangle, it transports you to like another dimension, basically. Not the Beastie Boys song, not another dimension, another dimension, not that. This is scary. And then the last one, Acolyte, follows a guy named Mr. Hinklehorn. The art style is very much like Dr. Seuss-esque, and it feels kind of kiddish Dr. Seuss-esque in the beginning. But as the day goes on, Mr. Hinklehorn takes a bunch of crap from people, but his reaction through it all is a smile and basically saying thank you. It's like something's off with Mr. Hinklehorn. As the story progresses, you see what that is. And that's basically the breakdown, the premise of all of these different stories in issue 1 and 2. Again, over 100 pages in comics. And I really enjoy these stories, this series.
It sounds really fun. Comparing book 1 and how you might have put book 1 together, I know that there was probably a little bit of time. Was there anything that you learned when you started book 2 that you didn't know about from like when you originally did book 1?
So when I was first doing these are actually some of the first comics I did. I did these before I started doing the gallows, in terms of like working with an artist. These were kind of the first comics I did. Raw Horror, which is the second story in issue 2, that was the first comic that I did, like working with an artist on. And as I was working with all the artists on issue 2, at the time, I didn't know it'd be issue 2 or not. As I was working with the artist on that, I knew all 4 of those stories, I should say, all 4 of those stories were going to be one issue. I just didn't know if it'd be issue 1, issue 2, that sort of thing. As I was working with the other artists, once I finished Raw Horror with Jade Sky, I was like, hey, I've got this other story. It'll probably take up like an entire issue. Would you be willing to do it if I hired you to do it? She said yes, and it kind of progressed from there. So like in even though it's issue 1 and 2, the stories in issue 2, working with the artist, came first before working on issue 1.
Wow. Okay. So some stories in issue 2 were probably something that you had in your back pocket, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. What keeps drawing you to horror? It seems like you kind of like it a little bit.
I like it a good bit. I just kind of grew up on horror. Like I mean, I remember being 10 years old watching Saw 3 with my cousin. I didn't choose it. This was before I was watching crazy horror movies, but my cousin was super into horror movies. We went to our uncle's house who let us watch horror movies. Our parents didn't want us to watch stuff like Saw 3, which rightfully so. I don't think a 9 or 10-year-old should watch Saw 3. Um, but yeah, we went over, watched that, and I was into horror even before then. I remember watching Nightmare Before Elm Street with my dad. Like it was on cable, so it was the edited version kind of. But I was like 6, 7 maybe, and it was still like very creepy. The idea of this guy killing you in your sleep for a 6 or 7-year old, it's like, oh crap, I
That's
don't want to go
mind
to sleep.
blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, let me sleep with mom and dad, that sort of thing.
It's pee your pants
Um,
worthy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've just kind of always been into horror. And when it comes to my fascination with the writing of horror, not entirely like me writing horror, but what fascinated with writers writing horror was Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone, like the 60s Twilight Zone. Um, I love that show, still love that show. I literally showed some episodes to my sister last night because I didn't realize I had a Paramount Plus subscription. Turns out I do. Turns out I've been paying for it for months and didn't know. But but we were watching that, and yeah, that is a huge influence on me. And uh, I have longer story like horror stories that will be like a series, like it'll be a mini series, but it's all one story. But when it comes to like anthology type horror, Rod Serling is very influential in that with the Twilight Zone for me.
Nice. So with anthology, with that, you definitely wanted to create a book maybe in the vein of a Twilight Zone, somewhat with just like a few mini stories, but yet kind of that can kind of grab you by the face a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like
Nice.
I'm willing to say that Twilight Zone is a huge influence. Like maybe not on all of these stories, but at least Dismay Avenue as a whole, as the series as a whole, because on the back of every issue of Dismay Avenue, it says, an unexpected turn brings you down an unknown road. No ordinary horrors are found down this road, only those of dismay. Now, it's not a Twilight Zone introduction or anything, but the classic, imagine if you would, like
Yeah.
the Rod Serling introductions he did, heavily inspirational in that uh, part on the back, as well as just me writing these stories.
There's nothing wrong with that in like taking some bits and pieces and making it part of your own skeleton and actually work. It's not like you're like, oh, this is the Twilight area or whatever. You know, you're doing your
Yeah,
own thing
yeah,
and paying your homage to it in your own way, which is completely rad.
exactly.
Um,
Thank you.
can you talk to us a little bit about who you're working with on this book, as far as for
Yeah,
book number two?
yes. So with number 2, it's a few different people. Regarding the first story, Tolls the Bells, the person that's doing the main art is Gaetano Matt Briglio. His artwork is phenomenal. It's the manga-esque art style I was talking about before. Very much Junji Ito inspired. If people know horror manga, Junji Ito is a huge part of the horror manga landscape. Um, and yeah, I pointed specifically to Uzumaki, which is a book that Junji Ito does or did when I was talking to Gaetano a couple years ago about doing this book. And I was like, I would love to see it in this type of art style. Doesn't have to be one for one. Do your own thing, but along these lines. And he knocked it out of the park. And I also kind of like an unsung hero. Nikki Powers does the lettering on that story, and I think the lettering very much complements the art itself. But yeah, that's Tolls the Bells, and then the next one, Raw Horror, Jade Sky does that. She also did the main story in issue one. Then the third one is Destination. I worked with Federico Gillen, and he's a phenomenal artist. This story is more like your modern contemporary art style, but he's really good at lighting. And when it comes to lighting, that helps make things pop and look more beautiful. So I think he did a great job with that. And then the last one, Acolyte, I worked with Helen Bolton on this. And for those that know the Gallows Man, Helen does the interior art on the Gallows Man. And this was actually the first comic I worked on with her was Acolyte. When I was looking for artists for this book, found her because I was looking for someone that could do a Dr. Seuss-esque art style. Her portfolio definitely fit. She did this book, and then shortly after, I was working on Gallows, and I was like, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And I'm surprised that she was. I had to show her a bunch of the material because if you look at Gallows Man face value, it's like, I don't know. But I showed her the script and stuff. She was like, "Yeah, I'm down." So that's kind of where that led.
Do certain person's art style lend you for different stories? I'm guessing.
Uh, yeah, I would say usually the story comes first. Like I'll write the story and then, or at least I should say this. Back before I found these artists, I wrote the stories and then looked for like I had an art design in mind. Like with Acolyte, I was like Dr. Seuss. That's what I'm looking for. Um, and then I would look for artists that way. But now that I've worked with a decent bit of artists, there's some stories that I've wrote and have been writing where it's like it's kind of tailor made for this specific artist. Like it's kind of tailor made for like Gaetano, like stuff like that.
So you almost, when you develop these relationships, you almost start writing for them and their strengths.
It does, yeah, yeah. Especially when you've worked with them and you see how great they are. It's then like, oh crap! Like I want to see more of this. I want to write a story that that art can completely complement.
You give them a big time to flex, per se.
Oh yeah, 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 for sure.
How hard is this title to complete? Being an anthology series, it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts. Was it a little
There
frustrating?
are
Was it a little frustrating at times?
there are a ton of moving parts. When it comes to working with the artist, there were like no frustrations. Like this isn't even a frustration, but I'm just mentioning it. I think it was Gaetano. Like there was one period whenever I contacted him, and he was like, "It'll be about half a year before I can work on the story if you're okay with that." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm down with that." So that's not even a problem. But yeah, when it comes to working with the artists, there's no problems at all. Like they get it, and I send back editors' notes and stuff, and they just get it. They've got it. I'd say if any, not entirely frustration, but if anything, it usually comes down to me, like what I'm doing rather than what other people are doing because they're doing it good. My frustration is not even like writing the stories. Like I'm willing to admit this. This I was gonna have issue one and two come out this time in 2021, but there was life stuff, but it was also me trying to figure out what I wanted to do in comics and stuff like that. What path I was going to do, different stuff. Um, and it just took me a while to be like, put the books out. These books are done. Put them out. So if there was any frustration, it was more with me like trying to having to kick myself in my own butt to be like, get it done. Come on, finish it. Because the comics were done, the stories were done. Literally all I had to do was just edit the inside stuff that people usually don't look at, but I want it to be perfect in my eye, as good as it's not going to be perfect because I can look at one of my books and still critique it to this day. But you gotta get to a point eventually where it's like, okay, enough, put the book out.
It's a
If
good
you
enough
keep going
passing
with the
grade to make it okay.
exactly, if you keep doing the critiquing and critiquing, it's gonna be 5, 10, 15 years down the road and the book still isn't out. You have to get it to where it looks good. Most if most if not no one will notice the stuff that you notice. And even the stuff you notice, it's like, that's not that big of a deal. Or it's like, it actually, it works, that sort of stuff. So if anything, it's frustration in my need for perfection, but I think I've been able to work on that the past year.
I think a really great comic, no matter if it's indie or mainstream or whatever, a really good comic has a little bit of warts to it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You
for
know what I
sure.
mean? Like a good blues
Yeah,
band or a good rock and roll band or any kind of music or anything you do. If it just has a little bit of quirk or a little bit of warts or just it's not exactly perfect, I think that's what makes it awesome, you know?
I mean, like I know it's not a comic, but Kevin Smith's Clerks. Like I really like Clerks. It does have some issues. Like a big thing is they had the budget to do maybe two takes with each scene because they were shooting on film and stuff. So some of the takes you'll see like a actor or someone like stutter over their line because that was the best take that they had or whatever. But even with that, I still really like the movie, and that also brings a charm to it because a big thing with the enjoyment of Clerks is like, yeah, like it's this. It was the indie movie that inspired indie creators. Not entirely to say like, oh, anyone can do this. Not entirely saying that, but like you can do this. You don't
Yes.
need $1 million. You don't need $10 million. Like you can do this. You can also do it with your friends and stuff. So that was like I've thought about it the past couple years. I I don't love Kevin Smith's movies, but when it comes to him as a person and his work ethic, I think that's pretty influential to me, even though it's different. But Kevin Smith did write comics, so that plays in a little bit.
I can agree with you very closely in that, and also feel semi the same way about the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie being an independent film and these animatronic suits and like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
never really see them eat the whole pizza and stuff like that because you know they can't. And I mean, there's little quirks to it, and the film grain looks so good, and like with it being an independent film too, it was just like inspiring. Like holy cow, like you can really kick some ass. You can do this. And I mean, I know it's on
yeah.
another level when you have Jim Henson tied to it, but still, it's kind of
Oh yeah,
close.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And with the moving parts, did it ever, I guess not frustration is what I should have said. Did it ever just feel overwhelming? Like just all of this coming to you at once? Or was it just kind of like you had story done, story done, story done, story done?
Yeah, it was story done, story done, story
Okay.
done. Yeah, I don't entirely work well with like working on multiple stories at a time. Now that's not to say like with me, sometimes if it's a longer story or a longer script that isn't like one issue, or sometimes I'm writing screenplays isn't like an episode or something. Um, there are times where like I'll get to a point and script's not done. Let's say it's going to be an hour and a half long movie or a mini series comic. Like this was a recent example. There's a comic I want to do that will be I already know 12 issues. The 12 issues, I finished the first issue. The script for the first issue is completely done, and I have like issue two pretty much mapped out in my head. issue 3 a little bit. I know like beginning, middle, and end of the series basically. But I finished issue 1, but I didn't jump in and do issue 2 right after. I haven't worked on issue 2 yet, and I did that 4 or 5 months ago. But I am jumping over on like other comics and other series and stuff writing. Um, all that's to say is me personally can only work on one thing at a time, but a lot of times it's me jumping back and forth to stuff I've already worked on.
Nice. I can see where you're at as one thing at a time to kind of keep everything straight.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
definitely don't want to like start bathing in it all and then you never know where you're at.
Exactly. Start mixing up all the different properties you have and stuff. Yeah.
Then you've got a wrong part of a story in a wrong book.
Yeah.
Is it easier
Exactly.
to do an anthology or a full story?
Uh, I'd say, in my personal opinion, it's easier to do an anthology. I've always, like, since graduating high school, I've loved writing short stories and short scripts and stuff like that. So uh, it's super easy for me to write a short story, and even like a decent one, because I still write them. I'd say it's a little more challenging to do a bigger series. Like, not saying Gallows Man is like super long or anything, because it's just going to be a 4 issue miniseries. But when you factor page count, it's like the total of like 8 issues, really. But I do enjoy doing that type of stuff though, because there's a few series that I am writing that I do have issue 1 and 2 done, but it's ultimately eventually going back and tapping into issue 3 or issue 4. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, I think anthologies are easier for me, but that doesn't mean I enjoy one over the other, because even though a longer series is challenging, I still do really love trying to craft that world, basically.
Guys, if you guys want to craft another world in your brain, head over to lesserknowncomics.com. Use promo code EpicNerd15 at checkout and save yourself some dollars. Or you can head over to kickstarter.com and you can scroll down through any of one of these wonderful creators from here. Brandon from Dismay Comics. We've got Dan Price from Bigfoot Knows Karate. We've got Mark from Lesser Known with Either Them or Us. Guys, just do a quick Kickstarter search and you can find it. Brandon, when does this thing actually launch?
So this launches October 18th. So October 18th at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time is when it launches. So if you're listening to this, definitely go check out the Kickstarter campaign, because it will be October 18th, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time to November 17th, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Or, sorry, November 18th Central Standard Time. I'll say November 17th to kind of rush you into not waiting till November 18th. But definitely do check this out. At least check out the Kickstarter page. Not trying to like promote the Kickstarter page design or anything, but I think this is the nicest looking Kickstarter page that I've done, where I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. There's a ton of preview pages. You can see 7 preview pages from issue 2, 7 preview pages from issue 1, and a ton of information about it. Including, we've got an exclusive Dismay Avenue t-shirt that's going to be on the Kickstarter, where if you look at the Kickstarter pre-launch image, the pre-launch page image, it's a little boy reaching through like a vortex, basically. He's reaching through, he's crying. That's going to be on your chest, basically. So you're going to have a giant vortex. The little boy is reaching out, basically like, Josh, save me. It's like, no, stay on the shirt, stay.
Stay here,
The
stand
shirt
up and
looks
clap on the shirt.
exactly. The shirt looks great. I'm definitely getting 1 or 2 for me. My sister was like, "Hey, I want." I was like, "Okay, I'll get you one." But but yeah, I think it looks good. Definitely uh, pick up these comics, but I know it's hard to get people into comics sometimes if they've never read a comic. So even if you aren't into comics or horror or anything like that, you can get the shirt separately. So uh, even if you aren't into comics, there's something for you.
Well, if, and not to jump off of what we were here originally for, but if you're not into horror, check out Brandon's other titles,
Oh
Gallows
yeah,
Man
yeah.
and good old Newsboy. Because if you want a good vibe, you need to check out some Newsboy.
Which I'll say, I don't have an online store. I should also mention that I don't have an online store where you can pick those up because I like the Kickstarters to kind of feel like events, like
Hmm.
make it feel special for like people that get in on it rather than I've said this a bunch of times this week. Hopefully Boom Studios doesn't kill me or anything. No offense, Boom Studios. The Boom Studios had a Kickstarter for Berserker. It's a Keanu Reeves comic book. Great book. I like the book. They had a Kickstarter for it, and basically 3 or 4 months later, you could get Berserker at a comic shop. And at the comic shop, it was $3.99. And on that Kickstarter, you likely paid $15 or more. So it's like, oh, I should have just waited. Because
Yeah.
it's like it's a Keanu Reeves comic book. It's going to make its funding goal and stuff. So it's like, oh, I should have just waited. I don't want to do that. I want people to feel like they did get the bang for their buck and also just feel like it's like special because I don't want to have this Kickstarter, then 3 4 months later have it in my online shop if I had an online shop and it be like cheaper, like a few bucks cheaper than what it is on Kickstarter. It's like no, but I want this to feel special, feel like people are getting in on like a ground floor just about. Um, and that's basically to say, uh, even though this is Dismay Avenue Kickstarter, you can pick up your horror books. You can pick up issues 1 and 2 of Dismay Avenue. And in the add-on section of the Kickstarter, you can pick up Gallows Man issues.
Nice.
There are Gallows Man issues in the Kickstarter. So if you haven't read any of the Gallows Man or picked up Gallows Man while you're picking up your horror stuff, you can also pick up that Golden Age, Silver Age, uh, Superman or superhero satire stuff.
So you guys can get it all. Guys, head over to Kickstarter.com, search Dismay Avenue, and you guys can run down the certain tiers. I'm guessing is what they're called. Certain
Yeah, yeah.
add-ons that you can have for the books, guys. You can get Dismay Avenue 1 and 2, Gallows Man, obviously certain different things that he'll be producing. Brandon, will there be a Dismay Avenue 3?
There will. With Disney Avenue number 3, it's going to have 3 stories in total. 2 of the stories the art is completely done with. One of those 2 lettering needs to be done for that. And then I got to find an artist for the 3rd story. So 3rd issue is like 2/3 of the way done. But I have scripts all the way up to issue 7. Not saying it's going to stop at issue 7. I want it to go even beyond issue 7. But I'm saying scripts are completely done, like completely written, done. Just got to hire an artist all the way up to issue 7. So I'd love to see it keep going and continue. I really enjoy writing this series.
Do you have a possible start date, maybe for a Kickstarter for number 3?
Number 3 will likely be the same time as this one, but next year.
Okay,
So
righteous.
what I'll likely do is Gallows Man because it's a much longer comic and it's just Helen working on it. Whereas with like issue 2 of Dismay Avenue, it's 4 different artists, so they all can work at the same time. But Gallows Man is just Helen working on it. Gallows Man will likely be a yearly thing. Like issue 3 will probably come out sometime between January of 2023, no later than May of 2023. And then Dismay Avenue number 3, likely September, October of 2023. And then from there, I'd like to try to do 2 Dismay Avenue Kickstarters each year. So like issue 4 and 5, that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I imagine if you had any more, you'd probably have to quit your day job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's there's a limit to it because I should mention to people that don't know about super indie comic creators. We pay out of pocket. There is no profit to this. We just love doing this. We love doing this. Want to see our work be put out and people be able to read it and enjoy it. Um, that's the reason we do this. There's no profit to this. We pay out of pocket for artists and stuff, but we love it so much that we just want to keep doing it.
When you write these kind of horror stories, what do you do to get in the frame of mind?
Uh,
Do you just sit on the couch and eat chips, or like you go outside into a spooky place, or like,
with
how do
with
you
these
manifest these things?
specifically, yeah, with these specifically, with issue one at least, like the first third of that program story is like completely true. It was like a date I had with a girl, like a date night I had with a girl, and then like a month or two later, I was like, I've been thinking about this for like a month or two. I want to expand this into like a what if story. Like, what if it did go this nightmarish way, basically? Um, and then with the others, it just different parts within like a couple of years. I wrote those four stories, but uh, a more recent example, I'm currently writing. Uh, I say writing. I haven't written anything for it in like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm writing a one-shot horror comic that I really like and will likely only come out physically. I probably won't do a digital thing because I think it's only going to work physically. Because it's going to play with like the outside world beyond the comic. Um, but with that one, I didn't intentionally do this, but I think it helped. I didn't have a lamp on my desk, and I needed a lamp because my lights were being weird. So I was just gonna do a lamp so I could work on writing and stuff. Didn't have a lamp, but I had these two. They just so happened to be like red candles. They're very creepy looking. I lit them so I could write. I'm trying to think what else. There was something else with that. There's some other creepy element within it that I didn't intend to be creepy, but if someone walked by as I was writing, they think like, the heck is going on? Like, this guy doing like a seance or like, what the heck is going on in here? It was more like, I just needed to write. But I think it did subconsciously like get me in a horror writing mood because I was just typing away at that. So yeah, like unintentionally, I can get into that horror mood. But for these other stories, like in Dismay Avenue, it just kind of happens. Like one day, I'm like, I had this idea a month or two ago. I want to expand upon it. I want to flesh it out more, and that's usually how it works.
Are there any other horror tales in your canon that you might be, but like the one shot you might have discussed? Is there anything else kind of you might be kicking around?
Yeah, there is one, and it'll. I have no idea how long it'll be. It'll be a series, like one story series. Um, it could be because there's so many directions I can go with. I know how the first issue will play out. I know the broadness of the next few issues. I know kind of like a critical point in the series. I don't know how the series will entirely end, but I mean, that could be anywhere from 6 issues to 25 issues, 30 issues. That one is hard to tell because there's a bunch of directions I can go with it. But when it comes to horror, that's the other one that's on my mind that isn't Dismay Avenue or that one shot. Um, and then I'm also writing like a bunch of other genre stuff, like some other superhero stuff, not entirely like the satire stuff, but various things kicking around and on my phone notepads and stuff.
Well, it sounds like the buffet is full.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing is like what's good is whenever I'm in the writing mood, I can just go to my notepad and look at all the different ideas I have and just pick one and be like, okay, I'm going to write that today. So that's the plus side is there are ideas there. I just got to be in that writing mood go through the notepad, be like, that's the one I'm working on today.
Well, it's good to be able to pick different things, like, because yes, every day is a mood. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
completely different from the next, and it can definitely, if you're not in the right headspace, it can hinder kind of what goes down.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, Kickstarter's launching tomorrow. Different things are, things are heating up around you. What's next? Just lay and wait for the Kickstarter to be done, or just kind of continue writing, or what's next in this process?
So next will pretty much be like once this Kickstarter is done, next will pretty much be, well, the very next thing, not just like getting the books and stuff for people for this Kickstarter. The very next thing will be like preparing for cons, because I haven't done like booths at comic conventions and stuff before, but in 2023, I'm going to try to do like a few of them. At least the first half of 2023, there's like 4 or 5 that I have in mind. So right after this Kickstarter, we'll be ordering banners. I've got a 6 foot table in my house. I can set that up, try to basically get what I want the table and booth to look like when I get to the conventions and stuff. That'll be the very next thing. And then like as I get the hang of that and get used to that, basically be prepping the Kickstarter for Gallows Man issue 3. Um, and all while doing that, working on some of the other comics and series that I've got going on.
So, like you were saying, I'm guessing cons are going to be a big next step for you this next year.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The very first one I'm doing, which might be good, might be bad. It's like it's Fan Expo New Orleans. It's kind of a big con. It's not giant, but for a first con, might be a little big as a person with a table. But I'm looking forward to it. That'll be January 6th to 8th, and then like 2 weeks after that, like a one day. This is probably what I should have started out with, but I really wanted Fan Expo. Uh, the next one, 2 weeks later, is just a one day Saturday convention in like the middle of Georgia. Um, that one won't be too bad. Uh, I feel like I'll be able to stand out there fairly decently. Um, and then from there, if they'll ever open up their applications, because I've been checking since April and they haven't updated the applications. Pensacon in Pensacola, Florida, that's from February 24th to 26th. I really want to do that one because that's the closest convention to me. That's like 45 minutes away.
Oh
All
hell!
the other conventions are like 3+ hours away. So with that one, I don't have to get a hotel. So that'll be good. I don't have to pay for hotels and stuff.
Yes, sir.
But but yeah,
Are you planning on doing Nashville?
I would like to do Nashville. It ultimately comes down to budgeting. Um, I would like to do Nashville because the Nashville one is pretty big from what I've heard of, and that would be pretty good. I'm currently kind of leaning towards maybe doing MegaCon in Orlando, but again, that depends on budget because with both of those, Orlando or Nashville, basically the same distance for me. Um, and I got to factor in the hotel cost and the booth costs and then food and all that. So I'll have to see. I'll have to
Well,
see.
it definitely doesn't sound cheap getting set up for a con.
It's definitely not. It's one of those where like if you're an indie creator and like you're not, if you're an indie creator and you like run the publishing brand or whatever, it's not cheap. If you're like a creator and like Image, if you're a creator under Image Comics and you're like, hey, come do this, it's like Image Comics has your cost pretty much taken care of. But no, indie creator, it's like you got a set number of cons you can do per year if you're at a budget. And I'm at a specific budget. I likely will in total probably do 5 or 6 cons in 2023, if not more. But I'd like to do at least 5 or 6. But yeah, that's kind of the budget right
Man, it'd be hard to do a few, and just even three or four. Like, hell, I've barely got a budget just to try to make one, let alone
now.
then
Yeah,
buy
because
all the advertisements and then make books and everything. Like, man,
exactly, because like with Fan Expo, I think the tables were 325, and that sounds like a lot, but surprisingly, it's not for the size of the convention. Because Fan Expo New Orleans is pretty big, and yeah, 325 for a table. And trying to remember, I think it was like Dragon Con in Atlanta, which is about the same size, maybe a teeny tiny bit bigger. It was like $700 or $800 a table.
wow.
Um, Big factors to like factor into it. And plus, since I don't live close to any of these, I got to pay for a hotel. And usually on those weekends, because of those conventions, hotels cost even more than they usually do. So yeah, big factors.
So, with all this being said, how's your stress level right now?
When it comes to making comics and stuff, the past month, I mean, it has been like there's stress there, but the past month, as crazy as it can be, it's almost like an outlet because there's life stresses that I have that aren't related to comic making or Kickstarters. And a lot of times the Kickstarters and the comic making is almost like something for me to focus on. Not that I'm ignoring the life stresses, but it's like you do so much with the life stresses and it's like, okay, I need to focus on something else for a little bit. And that's a big thing with a lot of people's lives is you need to focus on those life stresses, but you do need something else to occupy your thoughts in time sometimes. That way that's not all you're thinking about.
Yeah, it can definitely kind of like manifest its own little black cloud.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know what I
For
mean?
sure.
And things don't look as bright as they should.
Yeah.
Um, Besides your own Kickstarter, whose Kickstarter are you most interested in this month, or is that even something on your radar?
Honestly, not even because you mentioned him, but I wanted to get on the last Kickstarter he had, but I was too late. The Bigfoot Knows Karate 2 Kickstarter. When I heard about that, I was too late. It was like a week after that Kickstarter, the first one had ended. And I was like, crap, like this is a book I would love to read. And luckily he had the issue 2 one. And like that night I backed it and I got both physical copies of issues 1 and 2 because I was like, I want to read this and I want to read this like physically because I really like, based on what I've read in the descriptions and stuff, I really like this idea of this series. Um, but that, and then this comes out, I think, like November 1st. The Theme of Thieves by Dog Pound Brown. Um, issue 3 is coming out then. And that one, it's kind of a not entirely a slow burn comic, but he's building towards something epic. Like, I'm not saying it is this. I'm not saying not uh hurting Dog Pound Brown by saying this or not affecting Alan Moore by saying this, but it feels very Watchmen-esque in that it's building, and I want to see where it's building to. And it seems like issue 3 or 4 will be like a huge culminating point, and I want to see that. I want to see that culminating.
Man, that's awesome that you actually do have, the eyeballs for other creators and seeing what else is out there, being one yourself, and
Oh yeah,
kind of
like
taking it in. Like that Bigfoot Knows Karate is a definite adventure.
oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, when it comes to buying floppies, I don't buy Marvel, DC. I don't buy Image, Boom, any of that stuff. I buy the trades. I still read all of that stuff in trades. I buy trades usually when they come out and stuff, or if I see a good sale. I still buy trades for all those. But when it comes to buying floppies, like issues, comics themselves, it's all Kickstarter for me. Like I buy the indie stuff because one, I do want to support other indie creators and I want to see them keep going. I want to see them keep going. I want us all to support each other. But also a lot of times it's like, I really want to see this. I really want to see the story. I really want to see Bigfoot Knows Karate because other publishers, big publishers and stuff aren't making books like that. And that's what excites me.
One last question here before I let you go. I have noticed your comic book hunting, not to kind of play hypocrite, I guess, on what you just said, but I know this place you've been hunting called Ollie's. Can you please describe us Ollie's and the mass plethora of comic books that this place has, or
So
this
yeah,
places have?
yeah. It's a huge chain. It's mostly in because I looked up a map because some people had never heard of Ollie's
I've
Bargain Outlet.
never heard of Ollie's.
Yeah, I there were people in the comments that were like, I never heard of this place. Um, but yeah, so it seems like Ollie's Bargain Outlet is mostly in the east side of the United States. Like it's in Northeast and it's in Southeast, but I don't really see it much in Middle America or the West. Um, but yeah, Ollie's Bargain Outlet is. Do you have a dirt cheap or do you know what dirt cheap is?
No, no,
Crap,
no, I
that's
do not.
another. Okay, that's another thing. Well, it's so Ollie's is basically like a discount grocery store. I guess that's a good way to put it. They don't just have groceries though. They have like it's basically your lower Walmart. Walmart is at kind of this area, but it's a lower Walmart and has all kinds of stuff. But the only reason I go in there, I go to once you walk in, it's usually to the left or to the right. You don't have to go back or anything. It's a huge book section. And within that book section, there's graphic novel sections. And there's a ton of selection, like a crap ton of selection in these sections. There's mostly Marvel and DC stuff, but you also do find some more indie type titles and stuff like that. But when it comes to buying trades and all that, I probably bought 50 to 100 trades through Ollie's over the past 3, 4 years because it's cheap. Like I literally, let me see a specific example. I got them all boxed up because I need a new bookshelf because those videos I was doing, I was on a road trip and I got like 35 or 40 trades in total. I was like, these aren't going to fit on my current bookshelf. So I need to get another one. But I mean, I got all kinds of stuff. I got like, what's the book? Oh, Justice League versus Suicide Squad. Like that was a big DC event. That was like $6 at Ollie's. It's a hardback
Wow.
trade. I got like the Lazarus contract, which was like a big Teen Titans type event going up against Deathstroke. That was like $4 or $5 for a hardback trade. Um, yeah, I mean, and most of the paperback trades that you get there are $3.99 or less, and they're like big stuff. You can get the entire Scott Snyder New 52 Batman run at all. Like you can get all 10 volumes, and you're paying like less than $40 for it. You're paying like
Probably
$30
damn
basically.
near what the one book costs itself brand new.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I was just thinking about something. Let me get it real quick. I'll get one of them. I'm not gonna get both. But like the first Miss Marvel series. This was the first book. It was 2 books in total. It was like 19 or 20 issues with those 2 books. I got these at Ollie's. I got that whole first series. This was before Secret Wars happened for Marvel, but I got these $7 each, I think, and they're
Jeez.
$35 books. Um, I got those. I got most of Matt Fraction's Hawkeye from Ollie's. I had to pick up one trade from Amazon, but I mean, really good book. Like not just the random crap. Like volume 7 of this mediocre
Of
comic
whatever.
book superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can pick like really good series up for super cheap. So if if there's any middle American people listening or West Coast people listening, if you ever are visiting the East Coast or just the east side of the United States, search up some ollies. You'll likely find some trades that you would really like for cheap.
That is wild that you can find that. Like, you keep posting this, and I'm like, there's another location. Here's another location. And there's another one. And another one. I was like, when the fuck is this guy buying this shit? Like, what the hell?
With most of those, like the Mississippi and the Alabama ones, that was all within one weekend because I was doing a road trip, and like basically a third of that road trip was like, hey, I'm going here. I might as well go to this Ollie's near here.
Where did
It
you
wound
go
up
at
being
in
like
Mississippi?
the lower half of Mississippi. Like I went to Meridian, then Jackson, then Natchez, and then Hattiesburg. Like
Nice.
those were the main places I was in. Out of all those places, I would actually love to live in Hattiesburg. I liked it a lot. But yeah, like there's Ollies all over the place in the east side of the United States.
All right, one last thing, man. What is the last thing that you've read?
Last thing I read that I finished, because I'm currently reading something. I'll mention what I'm reading right now. I'm mostly on like a Superman binge right now. Superman's my favorite superhero character. I love Superman. Um, the last thing I read, I'm trying to remember specifically. I think it was I finally read Truth, Justice, and the American Way. It's just a one issue comic. It's like 40 pages long. Really, really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I should also mention the reason I'm doing this Superman binge is I really like Superman, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, uh, my I thought I had a favorite Superman book. I read All Star Superman like back in late high school. It was my favorite Superman book by Grant Morrison. And then I read Tom King's Superman Up in the Sky, and I was like, this is really good. And I was like, like I want to go back and read All Star Superman and some other Superman books. I want to go back and just kind of compare. Reread All Star Superman, and I thought it was good. I do like All Star Superman, but Tom King's Superman Up in the Sky to me was better. It's a lesser known Superman book, but the most Superman, best Superman, showing who Superman is Superman Up in the Sky. And that just kind of led me to like, not a fracture, but it's like, okay, I thought I had the best in my head. I need to go back to all of these Superman books that I love and reread them and see which one is the best. So far, Up in the Sky is number one. Kingdom Come is close, but I consider Kingdom Come more of a trinity, the Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, more than Superman book. I'm currently reading Superman for All Seasons and really enjoying that. But I've got two more to read, and then I'll have the crowning Superman book in my head.
That's so rad. I don't know if you've seen. I posted a action figure comic with Superman like a month ago, month or so ago.
Nice, awesome.
But guys, if you guys want something for your palette, head over to Kickstarter.com tomorrow, 12 p.m. Central Time. Look up Dismay Avenue. Just click the back button while you're standing up and clapping from this episode. You can just click that support button, click the back button, whatever you want. Books, issue 1 and 2 from horror. If you want a shirt, he's got that. If you want Gallows Man, he's got that as well. Guys, just head on over there, back the book, support our brother Brandon while he gets Dismay Avenue to your eyeballs. Brandon, do you have anything else left you want to say?
Basically, support my book, support other indie creators. There's a lot of great books out now and that are coming out. But yeah, just support these books and definitely check out the Kickstarter campaign page for Dismay Avenue number 1 and 2. And if it interests you, back it because there's tier levels from $1 to $60. So there's a tier level for any and everyone's budget. You can get issue 1 digitally for just $5. You can get both issues digitally for $9. That's over 100 pages of comics. And then physical copies, they start at $11 and just all kinds of stuff from there. I do want to mention there's backer giveaways. Once we hit 25 backers, 50 backers, there's backer giveaways there. And when we hit 75, I say when because I know we will. When we hit 75 backers, one lucky backer will get this original piece of art right here, done by Thomas Tikas, who is the cover artist of the Gallows Man. He did the main cover art for issues 1 through 4. And one lucky backer from this campaign, when we hit 75 issues, will get this. And it's basically Newsboy chasing after a mugger down the town city's streets. You got a big old battle axe behind him, ready to ensue Newsboy's brand of justice.
You had me at Newsboy.
Perfect.
But guys, Brandon, thank you so much. And guys, check out the Kickstarters. If you guys are watching this, Brandon, I'm going to try to have this premiere tomorrow at 11 our time.
Awesome.
Just a little bit before you go live, so maybe we can do what we can to hype this thing up and get this thing rolling. But
that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Man, thank you for coming on and doing this. And, I apologize for not getting that date set up sooner. It just kind of, with the way life kind of runs, I kind of got to do it.
I understand. You're good, dude.
One panel at a time. But guys, big, small, one and all, head over to Kickstarter.com. You can back Dismay Avenue. You guys back Bigfoot Knows Karate. Either them or us. All a part of Launchtoberfest 2022. I've been your host, Josh Jones, for Mr. Brandon Ingram. Guys, Dismay Avenue. Check it out, babes. Until next time. Peace.